Hey guys, I'm your host, Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to this week's episode of Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. My latest book, Kowabana Volume 13, is now out. Collecting even more of your favourite stories from the show, you can find terrifying ghosts, cruel curses, haunted buildings, weird monsters, and much, much more. You can find that on Amazon right now, and help support the show at the same time. This week, we're looking at some stories of past events coming back to haunt us here in the present. First up, there's a tree at school that people call Ayako-san's tree, although nobody is quite sure why. When the school decides to cut it down one day, however, things start to get really weird. Find out why in Ayako-san's tree. At the elementary school I attended, there was a tree called Ayako-san's tree. I don't know what type of tree it was, but it was a thick, massive tree. I don't know why it was called Ayako-san's tree either. But because it had that name, there were lots of ghost stories surrounding it. Like, Ayako-san was buried beneath the tree, or that Ayako-san hung herself from it, or that you could see her sitting on one of the branches late at night. At any rate, it was decided one day to cut Ayako-san's tree down. The tree was far too large for the grounds, and stood right behind the starting line for the 100 meters track, so it was in the way for PE classes and sports days. On the day it was to be cut down, PE classes were held in the gym, and we were forbidden to use the school grounds because it would be too dangerous. During class, we heard the sounds of a chainsaw, and as soon as it cut into the tree, a horrific scream tore through the entire school. It was so weird that I couldn't tell whether it was a man or a woman's scream, nor could I tell where it was coming from. It sounded like it was coming from a classroom, but it also sounded like it was coming from much further away. Our teacher immediately stopped class and then went out into the hall to have a discussion with the other teachers. While they were out there, the screaming continued the entire time. A few minutes later, we were told to evacuate onto the school grounds. The whole time, we could still hear that screaming. It echoed throughout the entire school. But we still couldn't tell where it was coming from. Even after we left the building and entered the school grounds, we could still hear it. But then, as soon as Ayako-san's tree was cut down, the screaming stopped. We didn't have classes after that, so everyone was sent home straight from the school grounds. There was a meeting that night for all the parents and teachers, and it was decided that the next day would be a day off for everyone. The parents were told that someone had broken into the broadcast room and played a prank. I went to school the next day with some friends, but the school gate was closed and we couldn't go in. We could see the school grounds from the road, however, and several people were standing around the stump that was left of Ayako-san's tree. It was surrounded by white rope. Seemed they were holding a cleansing ceremony. I was on my way home from swimming school that night, and as I rode past the school, I looked over at Ayako-san's tree and noticed a girl was sitting on the stump. There was only one light at our school, and it was right next to that tree. That was why I could see her even from a distance. There was undoubtedly a girl sitting on that tree stump. It was after 10 p.m. Why was a girl sitting there at this time of night? It was Ayako-san. It had to be. I was afraid, but more so, I was happy with the story I'd be able to tell everyone the next day. I started pedaling so I could quickly go home, when a broadcast suddenly played over the town's speakers. It was odd for a broadcast to air this late at night. I stopped my bike and it seemed that a young girl around elementary school age had gone missing. A girl around elementary school age. Images of that girl sitting on the tree stump flashed through my mind again. Was it her? But why was she sitting there? Honestly, I was scared, but I also thought that people would see me as a hero if I was the one who found her. That temptation won out, and I went back to the school all by myself. I parked my bike by the front gates and then climbed over. The moment I hit the ground, a terrible chill ran through me. Just being at school at night was scary, but that girl was sitting on the stump of Ayako-san's tree as well. I debated what to do. Should I return home first and come back with my parents? Or should I go and get her myself? It was 100 meters from the front gate to the tree. Nervously, I started walking towards it. That girl was still sitting on the tree stump, her face looking down at the ground. The sight was so strange that I found myself unable to call out to her. I even thought about leaving right then and there. That's how frightening that girl was. But my legs refused to move. I stood there in front of the girl for about a minute or so before I finally made up my mind. "Are you okay?" I called out. "Why?" the girl said, her face still looking at the ground. I could barely hear her. "Eh?" "Why did you cut it?" she asked. She must have been talking about Ayako-san's tree, but still, why was she asking me? As I stood there in silence, she then slowly looked up at me. She was a regular girl, but the expression on her face was one of great anger. She got up from the stump and then approached me. I wanted to run, but I was still too scared to move. The girl then stopped right in front of me and screamed. "Why?" That same weird scream we'd heard at school the day before then tore through the air again. All the windows were closed, yet I could still hear it leaking out. It was all too much, so I pushed the girl away and ran as fast as I could. The school gates were so far away. I wanted to look behind me, but I knew that I shouldn't, so I just kept running. As I ran, I could still hear that voice coming from the school. And then, when I reached the front gate, I saw a police car waiting on the other side. I was saved! I was so happy I wanted to cry. "Help me!" I screamed. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" the officer asked. I couldn't stop the tears from flowing. A few officers went around to the school grounds and then came back holding the girl. They let me sit in the car as I calmed down, and when I could finally speak again, I told them everything. I don't know whether they believed me or not, but the officers who went over to the school grounds must have heard that voice coming from the school as well. That girl was the one who was missing, and her mother cried as she hugged her. It was late at night, so I got them to call my parents and they came to pick me up. The next day was a Saturday, so I didn't have to go to school, but I got a message from my teacher asking me to come in after lunch. "We haven't finished the cleansing ceremony yet. You should probably come along too." That girl was from my same school, a member of the lower grades, and she was there with her parents as well. We spoke a little, but she didn't remember me, and she said she didn't remember much from the previous night. The school principal, vice principal, and most of the teachers were there for the ceremony as well. I remember being hit over the head numerous times with something that looked like a branch with lots of leaves. And I guess the cleansing ceremony worked, because nothing happened after that. I asked the teachers about Ayako-san's tree, but they said they didn't know anything about it. That tree had been there for a long time, so maybe something lived inside it. Whenever I pass by that school, I still get chills. I know I shouldn't look at it, but I always find myself looking at that tree stump. I pray that it really is just a stump, and nothing more. Next up, we're looking at an old custom known as kimamori, which is the practice of leaving a few fruits on trees in winter, so the next season they'll bear even more. But when the girl in this next story accidentally picks them all, she'll discover why she should have heeded that custom. Find out why in Kimamori. Have you ever heard of the custom called kimamori? It's where you leave some of the fruit on a tree and don't pick all of it. It's been around since ancient times, and the fruits you leave behind are called kimamori. The idea is that if you leave some behind this year, the next year the tree will produce even more fruit. This story is about something my grandfather's older sister experienced when she was a child. There was a large persimmon tree on the mountain behind my grandfather's house. Its fruit was rather bitter, so every year they made dried persimmons. 10 persimmons hung from a rope at their house. Seeing them all hanging there like that was a sight to behold. Apparently, once they had dried enough, monkeys often came to steal them. And every year, my grandfather would make dried persimmons with his grandmother and younger brother after school. One autumn, there were still clusters of persimmons hanging from that tree on the mountain. His grandmother was sick in bed, so my grandfather went out with his older sister to make the dried persimmons. Their father had already collected them, so all they had to do was peel the skin off and then hang them from the rope. And this work took my grandfather and his older sister several days to finish. Once they were nearly done, his older sister realized they didn't have enough persimmons. They only had 7. His sister was a methodical person, and she remembered there were several fruits left on the tree, so she went out to check. There were exactly 3 left. After thinking it over, she decided to pick them. She returned to the house, grabbed a bamboo stick, and then used that to knock the fruits off. But when she knocked the 3rd one off the tree, suddenly she heard a scream. Surprised and scared, she figured it must have been a bird, and then rushed home. The next day, her father apparently got angry at her for picking all the persimmons. Autumn passed. All the leaves fell from the trees on the mountain, and it was around the time that snow usually started to fall. When my grandfather's sister went out to the fields to pick the daikon radishes, something about that persimmon tree suddenly felt odd. There was a single fruit on it. "That's weird. I thought I took them all," she thought, and then approached it. As she stared at the fruit, suddenly it turned white, and a woman's face appeared, like a no mask. "I'd love to eat your right leg," it said, and then suddenly the fruit fell to the ground, rolled towards her, and with its wide open red mouth, took a bite out of his sister's right shin. Terrified and in pain, she ran all the way back to the house. When she looked down at her leg once she was inside, there was nothing there. Strangely, not even a scratch. When she told her mother about what happened, her mother just laughed it off and said she was imagining things. The next day, she was on her way home from school with a few friends when they walked underneath a cherry blossom tree. Suddenly, she heard that strange scream again, and when she looked up, she found herself frozen on the spot. There were 2 persimmon fruits hanging above her. As she stared at them, frozen, that white face she'd seen the day before suddenly appeared on one. "Your right leg was delicious." Then the other one turned into an old woman with white hair. "I'd love to eat your left leg," it said. Then both fruits fell and started rolling towards her. The woman with the white face went for her right shin, while the old woman with white hair opened her red mouth wide and bit her left shin. As soon as she felt that pain, she was able to move again, and once she did, the old woman on her left leg disappeared. Looking around, she realized her friends were staring at her. She asked them if they had heard any voices. "We didn't hear anything," they said. She asked them if they saw any persimmons. "We didn't see anything," they said. They were worried because she stopped so suddenly, and they thought that maybe she had a stomach ache or something. Afraid, his sister rushed home and then told her grandmother what happened the day before and today through her tears. When she was done talking, she was still so scared that she climbed into bed and cried there while shaking. Thinking this wasn't normal, their grandmother visited the chief priest at the nearby temple to discuss matters, but apparently he didn't take her seriously either. At her wit's end, and with no idea what to do, their grandmother stayed up all night praying in front of their ancestors' altar. "Please help my granddaughter," she prayed over and over. As their grandmother was praying that night, my grandfather's sister had a dream. A man in a white kimono appeared out of the darkness and then sat before her. He bowed deeply and then said, "I'm terribly sorry I've been unable to help. All was not forgiven." Then he bowed deeply again, slowly stood up, and disappeared into the darkness. The next day, his sister told their grandmother about the dream she had, and she hugged her, crying. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't able to do anything for you." And together they cried. After that, whenever his sister did something, their grandmother joined her. But after that, nothing strange happened again. 1 month passed, then 2 months passed, and still nothing happened. So gradually, their grandmother stopped joining her so much, and their lives returned to how they were previously. During the summer 3 years later, their grandmother caught pneumonia and passed away. That same autumn, as the persimmons started to gain colour, it was time for work again. My grandfather's sister was working in the fields when she stood on a nail with her right foot. The wound got so bad that in the end they had to amputate her leg from the knee down. However, after that, nothing bad ever happened again, and she lived her life in peace. My grandfather's sister passed away in August 2007. She was 83. It happened at home while she was asleep, so I think she just reached the end of her natural life. And the fact that her date of death was just 1 day different to her grandmother was also just a coincidence, I think. Before she died, my grandfather's sister used to say, "I lost my right leg because I was greedy. And if it wasn't for the help of my ancestors and grandmother, then I don't think I'd be alive today. You should also be satisfied with your lot in life and live modestly." Those were words both my grandfather and his sister used to hear a lot when they were children. I'll remember those words well and keep them dear to me. Languages are learnt, but can they be something that already lies deep in our bones? The boy in this next story might be wondering that after his strange experience as a child. Find out why in Todashi. This happened 20 years ago. I was 2 or 3 years old at the time, and I lived in an apartment with my mother and father. One peaceful, uneventful afternoon, I was at home with my mother as she was doing some housework. Or maybe she was relaxing in the living room. At any rate, she was doing her usual thing, and I was playing in another room, until I suddenly ran into the hall. As soon as I saw my mother, I screamed, "Toradashi's here!" She had no idea what was going on. "What's this all of a sudden?" she asked, but I just repeated it. "Toradashi's here! Toradashi's here!" I tried desperately to hide and pointed to the front door on the other end of the hall. "What on earth is Todashi?" my mother asked in surprise. "You mean like a tiger? What does it look like?" "No, Todashi," I said again. "It's here! It's here!" I clung desperately to her back like I was afraid that I was about to die. I think I slowly started to calm down after that. Once I was calm, my mother tried asking me again what that strange word meant, but I had no idea myself. It wasn't a tiger, nor an ox, but Todashi. Todashi's here. That's apparently what I said. I only vaguely remember being scared of something, and I don't remember it very clearly now, but it seems Todashi showed up regularly after that. Whether I was at home or even in the car, I would suddenly scream, "Todashi!" and start shaking in fear. As I got older, that thing that traumatized me so faded away, almost like it had never happened. It became nothing more than a popular story my family told of something surprising from my childhood. Even I thought that I must have imagined it. Children love imagining things, and they're also easily scared by their own imaginations as well. Because I heard about that story so much growing up, I wasn't particularly afraid of this Todashi. It existed only as a vague term in our household, and nothing more. But then, the other day, my friends and I were sharing scary stories, and they asked me if I had one. "Well, it's not exactly scary, but more of a strange story," I said, and I told them about Todashi. "Wow, that's strange," everyone said, and then one friend suggested I Google it. "I never thought of that," I said with a laugh, and then looked it up. Something about a herb that grows in Southeast Asia popped up, but it didn't seem to hold any particular meaning. "Well, if it was a herb, then maybe it had some sort of symbolic meaning," I said. But then when I looked at the next page, I found a different meaning. It was from the dialect used in Miyako Island in Okinawa. It meant, "I'll kill you." I can't describe how I felt when I saw that. It wasn't so much fear, but rather astonishment or shock that ran right through me. You see, my father's side of the family is from Okinawa, which means I'm half Okinawan, but my father has barely been there himself, and I grew up in Kansai. I'm a pseudo-half. And I've never even heard of Miyako dialect before. Of course, my father had never heard the term Todashi either. Well, it seems like it's more of a violent word than something that might curse you. But it's odd to think that my young self was speaking the Miyako dialect when nobody I can think of ever used it. Perhaps it was a latent memory in my blood. It might be a little hyperbolic, but I have agricultural blood, Asian blood, Japanese blood, and Okinawan blood. I feel like the blood that runs through my veins must have some relation to that. I wonder if there's something that makes me feel like I want to live in Okinawa. At any rate, it might just be a coincidence, but Still, that was my strange experience. In this next story, a group of friends head out to visit a ghost spot, but on the way, they're warned not to climb the mountain at night. A warning they'll wish they heeded. Find out why in The Mountain Swallows People at Night. This happened when my friends and I visited a famous tunnel in the mountains known to be haunted to celebrate the end of our teen years. Neither my 3 friends or I had any money, or even a car, so we took the bus to get there. We then planned to walk back home at night. Looking back on it now, it was a pretty stupid plan, but at the time we didn't think much of it. The plan was to simply visit a ghost spot for a test of courage and enjoy a nighttime walk. 2 birds with 1 stone. Once we got off the bus, the plan was to walk from the town to the mountain, but A often got car sick, so we had to wait in town a little longer than we had planned. As we watched the sun rapidly setting, we hurried towards the mountain, and then we saw an old guy who seemed to be on his way back from work. We greeted each other and then stopped to have a brief chat. He tried stopping us, telling us that the mountain was dangerous after dark. But that was exactly the thrill we were after, so we didn't listen to him. In the end, he made us promise not to go too far into the mountains, and then left us with some parting words. The mountain swallows people at night. If you get lost, do not follow the animal trails. Only follow the proper mountain trails, whether you're coming or going. We were kind of intrigued by what he said, but ended up brushing it off and continuing on our way. Anyway, by the time we reached the mountain, it was dark. The only light we could rely on was the moon and the torches we had. Mountains at night have this special air to them, and we felt ourselves getting more and more nervous every time we heard a sound. It was hard to find our destination in the dark. It wasn't long until we were lost. But, never fear, we had planned ahead for exactly this situation and brought with us a detailed map, which B then pulled out. Using the map, we found our way to the tunnel and then started looking around inside. We didn't encounter anything particularly strange, but I was creeped out by a Jizol statue that was carved out of the wall. I'd never seen a Jizol like that before, but that wasn't all. It even looked kind of weird too. I don't know all the details regarding Jizol statues, but in general, their faces and overall shape is round, right? But this Jizol statue in the tunnel had a long face and was rather large compared to the body as well. Plus, its eyes and smile kind of made it look like a kitsune. We were all a little creeped out when we saw it, but A, who was a coward who liked to act tough, said, "Hey, doesn't this Jizol look just like me? I don't know who I turned down, but they should pay me for my likeness." It was true A looked a little like a fox, but still. "Perhaps my mother secretly sold my good looks without telling me," he continued. "But she should have sold them to a big city, not out here in the countryside." He was a little narcissistic, but thanks to that, we were able to relax. There was nothing else there other than the Jizol, so we stole some of C's fried food. He really loved eating, and gave it to the Jizol, although it was just the food that fell to the ground in the struggle. We left the tunnel and started back down the mountain, talking about what we might find in the photos we took in there. It was the same road we had taken in, so we descended pretty fast. But then strangely, it felt like that same road was going around and around. At first, I didn't think much of it, but after we'd been walking for more than long enough to reach the bottom, I realized we were lost. There weren't any forks in the road for us to get lost, but still, maybe we messed up somewhere. So we decided to head back to the tunnel. We walked for quite some time, but we weren't able to find the tunnel again either. We started to panic, no idea where we were. But then B suddenly screamed as he looked at his map. "What?" We shone our torches on him. "Something fell over there," he said. We looked around and noticed a single monkey jumping around. I'd never seen a wild monkey before, and I had no idea there were monkeys out here to begin with, so we were shocked, but also a little relieved. "Oh, geez, it was a monkey? Don't scare me like that," B said. Everyone started chatting again, but then this time, A noticed something odd and screamed. "B! You idiot! The monkey stole the map!" We shone our torches on the monkey this time, and it was indeed jumping around with our map in its hands. A and B both ran after it, but it took off into the darkness and then disappeared. We had no idea what to do, and the monkey had taken off so fast that we couldn't follow it. So we decided to just start walking again. Of course, if we reached a fork in the road, we had no idea which way we should go. We were so stunned by the monkey accident that we called it names and spoke about what a strong foe it had been as we walked. But then we reached a fork in the road much quicker than expected. Which way should we go? Right or left? We shone our torches on the road, trying desperately to remember the scenery before us. "There's something to the left," A said, pointing. We went that way and found the tunnel with the Kitsune Jizo statue. There was no way we should have found this tunnel again on the road we came from. But rather than being surprised, we just wanted to find the best path to take back. I was obsessed with verifying the idea that there's a Jizo that wasn't here when we came, equaling that's the wrong road. As such, B, C, and I insisted on taking the right path, but A was strongly against it. He insisted that the Jizo was trying to help us and wouldn't take a single step more. "Stop messing around at a time like this," B said. "I'm telling the truth," A replied. C and I watched in confusion as A and B argued. With everything about to break out into chaos, suddenly that monkey with the map appeared from the road to our right. It all happened so fast that I was shocked, and the monkey seemed to be gesturing for us to follow it. I wondered if maybe I was dreaming. As I was even more confused by what was going on, A forcibly pulled B to the left road. "No way. He's not possessed, is he?" C and I wondered as we watched him carry on weirdly. We ran over to stop A, but then the two of us froze. As he was being dragged to the road on the left, B lashed out unnaturally. His bloodshot eyes rolled back into his head, and drool trickled from his mouth as he gnashed his teeth. "No! The monkey! I have to go with the monkey! I don't want to go this way! I want to go with the monkey!" He screamed like he'd lost his mind. "You stupid dumb fatty! Don't just stand there! Help me!" A yelled. Now that's A, I thought, his usual string of curses bringing me back to my senses. C and I ran over and grabbed B as he struggled, and we pulled him towards the left side of the road. After we passed the Jizo statue, B fell quiet and seemed to continue walking in a daze. When he finally replied to our calls, he looked around and then suddenly screamed and started running down the road as fast as he could. This startled us, and without knowing what was going on, we ran after him. It seemed the left road was the correct choice, and once we caught up to B, we found ourselves near the foot of the mountain. We continued down, but no matter what we asked B, he just said, "Shut up! Shut up!" C continued to silently eat the 10 or so umai bowl snacks that he brought with him. We then waited in town for the sun to rise. B remained silent even as we rode the bus home, and A got angry at me for peppering him with so many questions. With nothing else to do, I went through C's bag, but all I found were some chocolates that A then stole from me. He loved chocolate. Why did A choose the left road? Why was B acting so strange? Why did he sprint away after that? Having no answers to all of these questions annoyed me, and I yanked C's ear for not even having any chocolate left. He snapped and hit me in return. Once we arrived back in our hometown, we awkwardly parted ways and each went home. After that, I never found out what really happened, and the topic unfortunately became a taboo subject amongst us friends. But a month later, when I was hanging out with C, we made up like 2 days after returning from the mountain, he told me what he'd heard from both A and B. When I complained that they didn't talk to me, he said, "That's because you can't keep anything to yourself." I could say the same about you, I thought. But I kept quiet and listened. First, A. A said from the very beginning that he felt a kind of affinity for the Jizo statue, like it was something dear to him, and he got this warm feeling of being watched over from it. That was why he wasn't scared of the mountain or the tunnel. But when that monkey appeared, something about it felt bad to him. And even after the monkey disappeared with the map, he felt like something was watching him. When he found that Jizo on the left road, he thought that it was perhaps in thanks for giving him the fried chicken, and he wasn't too concerned either way. If we went the wrong way, we could just come back, and in a worst-case scenario, we could wait there until the sun came up. But when the monkey reappeared, he became certain that we mustn't take the right road. At first, he just argued with B, but once that monkey appeared, he noticed that B's eyes seemed to lose focus and thought that perhaps he'd been possessed. That was why he dragged him away, to get him away from the monkey. After B started acting crazy and we froze, that was when he panicked the most. He wondered if maybe we had been possessed as well. When B took off running and reacted to something behind us, A turned around and noticed the monkey sitting at the fork of the road, watching us. The expression on its face was one he couldn't put into words, but it was terrible, and it was full of evil. Next, B's story. Contrary to A, he apparently got a bad feeling from the tunnel. Like, it scared him right from the first moment he entered it. The thing that scared him most was the Jizo. As for the monkey, he thought it was nothing more than a wild monkey. That was it. When we reached the fork in the road, he thought A had lost his mind and violently disagreed with him. But after that, he didn't remember much, and next thing he knew, all of us were holding him tightly. "What? Are these guys into men?" he apparently thought, surprised. I think that part was probably just an exaggeration. As he tried to understand what was going on, he looked around and saw a monster around 4 meters tall by the fork in the road watching us, and so he panicked and ran away. After that, he was scared and didn't understand what was going on, and I was pestering him with so many questions that he withdrew into himself to meditate and calm down. And that's the strange thing that happened to us in the mountains when we were teenagers. It happened ages ago, so some parts might be a little embellished though. Finally this week, a restaurant owner rents some building space from a woman who lives in the same building, but he soon discovers that it has been through a lot of tenants in recent memory. Find out why in Tenant. When I was working in Johto Ward, I found a pretty nice place where I could run a restaurant. The landlord lived on the second floor, and the first floor was for the tenant's store. It was close to Tamura Kenji's yakiniku restaurant. Anyway, I was running a business where I didn't have to worry about eating. One day, I had a car accident, so I took it to a mechanic about 3 minutes away from the store to get it fixed. I didn't know him at all, but it seemed he knew me. "Aren't you a tenant over there? Must be tough," he said with a laugh. "Huh?" I thought. "Did something happen there?" I asked. But he brushed it off and said that if I didn't know, then it didn't matter. But I was curious, so I pushed him, and he said that 3 different tenants had passed through that building recently. 2 of them hung themselves, and one of them lost his mind and went missing. There's no way. That's stupid, I thought. But there was a recession, so it was possible. And while someone maybe did kill themselves there, I didn't think that alone would be enough to curse me. But when I got back to the store, I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I went to a nearby cafe and asked the part-timers working there about it. They told me terrible story after terrible story. The family that owned the building were apparently famous around town, and all of the men from the last 4 generations died by the time they hit 30. The current landlord had 3 sons and 1 daughter, and all the boys had died by 30, and apparently her husband fell ill and died 30 years prior, while another family member hung themselves. A spirit medium hanging out at a bar 3 stores away was invited to check it out, but when he got there, he said he was too scared to drink in there and left right away. And apparently the area around my restaurant was where they laid out the bodies of those who died during the air raids and such too. Come to think of it, we were near Fukaya Bridge, which was also famous for ghosts. But business was good, so I don't think that mattered. When it was extra busy, I even slept in the store, and I never sensed any ghosts or anything. But then one day, after all these peaceful days, something happened. I was cleaning the front of the store before opening, and the landlord had apparently just bought a printer she was struggling to get up to her house on the second floor. I asked her if she wanted me to carry it for her, but she said it would be too much of a hassle, so not to worry. I had an ulterior motive, however, so I half insisted that I would help, and then carried it up for her. "You can put it here, thank you," she said. I told her I was good with computers, and that I'd connect it for her, and then an old woman came out. After they had a brief discussion, she asked if I could please set it up for them. Once I was done, they said they'd make me some coffee, and once they left the room, I really needed to use the toilet. I figured I'd go back downstairs, and as I passed the half-open sliding doors, I looked inside. There was a Buddhist altar with a photo on it, although looking back on it now, maybe it was something different. and on the top part of the wall, there were numerous photos of family members who had died. There were so many of them, and as I marveled at this famous family where everyone died so young, suddenly a strange feeling swept over me. There was one photo without a frame. People can't help but notice something different at times like this, and as I looked at it, fear gripped me from the bottom of my heart. In red ink, my own name and date of birth were written on it. In a panic, I looked around and I could hear voices coming from the kitchen. I returned to the other room in silence, said I just remembered something I had to do, and then fled the house. I didn't even go back to the restaurant. I just ran. Luckily, my restaurant was part of a franchise, so I was able to have them deal with the landlord instead of me. I started living in hotels and moving around without telling my parents, and I later heard that the landlord frequently contacted my parents. Now I live in Tokyo, and I am still too scared to go back to Osaka. I haven't changed my certificate of residence yet either. A massive thank you and shout out to this week's Kami tier members, Christina, Just Sawn, and Emerald. It's thanks to your support, along with everyone else, that I'm able to keep doing this show, so thank you very much. Don't forget to check out Kowabana Volume 13, out on Amazon right now, and check out our newly revamped merchandise store at kowabana.store. And if you'd like to chat about this week's stories, come and join us in the Kowabana Discord. You can find that link in the description or on kowabana.net. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TaraADevlin for exclusive bonus stories and extras, or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/KowabanaJapan for all sorts of Japanese horror you won't find anywhere else. Thanks guys, stay safe, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to kowabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to kowabana.net now.